Okay, I am here. We are live. This is Jono Landon, and I'm joined today. Very excited to be joined today by Tim Selden, who is the founder and director of the Montessori Foundation, and also the Montessori Foundation Leadership Institute. And we're working together to collaborate on a lot of things, and he's going to be just taking part today as a co-presenter, and we've got some exciting stuff to tell you about together as well. I'm going to get this presentation started now. I'm really excited to see people in the webinar, and there is a chat box, everybody. So please feel free to send us a chat message anytime. So make sure that you're always you're always asking anything you need to know while we get this thing kicked off. So I'm going to get started now. So bear with me one second. Still working out the kinks on our new webinar system here. All right. So the topic of today's webinar is how to simplify and reduce parent communication workload by 80%. And essentially, what we've learned comes from years now of building systems and actually managing over 2 million parent messages through our system that we built. And let's just see. I want you to first, before we move on, take a look at this picture here, and tell me if this looks somewhat familiar. Like, can you relate to this at all? Right? You see this nice lady this is the office at the school, and she's got paper there and binders and piles of money and sticky notes all over the place. All the while there's this computer sitting there beside her that could actually manage all the same types of tasks. And with the right software, it could do it with a fraction of the time and hassle, right? So you are in the right place if you are trying to get my webinar. You're in the right place if you want to actually see what the screen's supposed to say. So just bear with me a second and I'll get this going. There we go. You're in the right place if you spend hours managing communication tools and systems. You're in the right place if you spend hours every week managing piles of paperwork. And you're in the right place, if you'd like to spend more time on higher value tasks like face-to-face conversations with parents and children. So one thing I want to mention now is that if you stick with me all the way to the end of the webinar today, there's going to be a really awesome bonus for you, but I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, because I want you to be motivated to see all this information. I know it's all relevant to you and you need it. So this is my little carrot, and I'll let you wonder what that bonus is, until we get there. So what are you going to learn today? So the learning goal, the first learning goal, is how to use communication tools the right way so that parents actually read your messages and are informed. Another goal, the second goal today is how to centralize all the communication tools into one simple system so you don't have to learn and manage contacts and tasks and work and paperwork in multiple different locations. And goal number 3 for learning today is how to reduce the time and money that goes into using paper in the office. And there's a lot of hidden expenditure in using paper, some things that you may not be actually realizing, and we're going to talk about those today. So the question is also, before I even get going, is why am I teaching this subject? So I actually started out as the managing director of a summer camp staff training software company. And after helping summer camps develop better staff training and communication systems, the company actually that the parent company I was working under asked me to lead a new initiative, which was a something for the K-12 school sector. And so my first task was to find out what the school market needed And so I started doing research. And what I very quickly learned, and this was back in 2011, was that parent engagement is incredibly important for the success of students. And everyone is talking about it. Every school district has pages about it on their websites. Every major university has departments, of education with sub-departments that are focused exclusively on it. Like to name a couple, Johns Hopkins has one, Harvard and USC. But no one is actually addressing the biggest roadblock to parent engagement. And so the question is, why is it so bad? Well, realistically, schools are not really run by digital communication and workflow automation experts, right? Like they're run by, education experts. And really that's the way it should be, right? That's the kind of school I want to put my children in, right? But the reality is that school leaders are creating really bad communication systems. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but that is just what's happening. So every school we talk to has no standard communication between the school and the parents. From one teacher to the other, it's a totally different story. They are literally doing whatever they want. And, the question to me that I look at it somewhat of an outsider is, why aren't school leaders enforcing a standard of communication for parents, right? Aren't parents really the customers, right? Shouldn't the quality of communication experience be geared towards what the parents need and want rather than what the school staff prefer? Because that's what's happening today. Everybody is allowed to just communicate with parents really however they want. So I just want to put yourself into a different scenario. If you could imagine like what it would be like at McDonald's, let's say, if every cashier could decide what form of payment they prefer, right? And the result of this lack of standards is that everyone's workload is greater, basically, right? Because if you think about it, like if you were a manager of McDonald's, right, and you were to say, okay, take whatever payment you want, and some cashiers only take cash, and some cashiers take credit card because they prefer the newer technology, and some cashiers like only want coins. Right? I only collect coins, right? That's the way I take my, you want to buy a Big Mac, I need coins to give that to you, right? Like that would just be insane. And the reason is because it would be horribly inefficient, right? And it would drive a lot of business away. So in reality, schools are doing the same thing with communications, but the reality is that they're actually training parents to ignore your messages because communication is actually that bad, right? You're sending repetitive information over and over just to make sure people got it because you don't have any standard process that's trackable, right? And you're sending everything to everyone because it's just too hard to group information to certain parents of a certain class or a certain age level. And the result is that you end up actually punishing the attentive parents they're actually reading everything to make up for the parents that are, uninformed. And it's kind of a vicious cycle. The other side of this coin is how frustrating and time consuming it is for the school staff and the faculty to use these systems, right? So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm just showing a picture of my family here because this is actually my wife and my oldest daughter, Leora. And she's an early childhood educator we live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, right? So the Ontario Ministry of Education really pounds on the paperwork like no other. So my wife is, I could tell you, I know firsthand how much time she spends doing paperwork, documenting the progress of children that she teaches. And for some reason, it seems like the younger the ages that you teach, the less you get paid and the more paperwork you're expected to do. It's just, I don't know why, but that's just how it seems to be. Taking all this together, I went on the path of learning about all this and seeing it happen in my own experience. And that's when I became obsessed with fixing this issue. So for whatever reason, I decided it was my mission in life to figure out the system for schools that will not only fix the parent engagement issue, but also make it way easier for school staff to perform their jobs by removing all the hassles that exist with managing multiple communication tools. The beautiful thing about that is that this is actually the same solution for both sides of the coin. The same solution that makes it easier for staff is the one that makes it better for parents and gives them the communication that they're looking for. So the secrets I'm going to give you today are all based off thousands, and I mean literally thousands of conversations I've personally had with school directors, teachers, parents, office managers, communication directors, enrollment directors. And when I start telling you these secrets, you're going to be like, well, Jono, I know that already, right? But like many really like many big secrets, they are kind of obvious, and the answer is kind of sitting there right in front of your face, hidden in plain sight. And that might sound like a bit of a cliche, but it really is true. The best way I can describe the conversations I have with people just like you is to describe it as kind of slowly lifting up a mirror in front of your face. And in that mirror, you notice that your hair is actually on fire, right? But for some reason, you didn't quite notice it. And you could kind of smell the burning and you could see some smoke, but you didn't really know what the problem was. You knew you had a problem. You knew something was brewing or burning, but so I'm here to show you that your hair probably is on fire. But the good thing is that I'm also gonna show you where the water is, so you can put out the fire and get immediate relief. So let's talk about that fire for a second. Now, I'm going to apologize up front. I'm going to tell you some negative stuff, but I promise I'm going to show you some really, really hopeful stuff real soon. But I just want to make sure that the reality, I'm painting the picture of reality today. So we see on average 20 communication tools used per school. Now, you might think initially that that's high, but I have conversations with school leaders every day. And when I ask them this question, I ask how many tools do you actually use at your school? They usually start off by saying 5 right off the bat. Then when we continue our conversation and talk about all the ways, schools actually communicate with parents, newsletters, announcements, invoices, documentations, progress reports, enrollment processes, the list just keeps on going. And we generally find that not only does the office use around 10 tools, each teacher seems to have their own little patchwork of communication tools as well. And you have to consider that because that is how your customers are being communicated to from your school. So let's do a quick poll. I just want to hear from everybody. How many communication tools are you guys using, right? So feel free just to list them off in the chat box here. I want to see, just tell me, off the top of your head, how many communication tools are being used at your school to manage communication and information between your school staff and parents at the school. And feel free to list off, what they are, or the ones that are just coming to the top of your mind. So there's a chat box there on the right side of the presentation. Go ahead and type in there how many you think you use. So we'll just give you guys a few seconds here to enter in the number of communication tools are being used currently at your school. Okay, and there's a bit of a delay, so I'm just going to keep moving on with the presentation. And at any point in time, feel free to just type that in, and let us know. So,
Jono, this is Tim.
Hey, Tim.
I'm not seeing anybody checking in. Now, I've been entering things in the chat, but I don't see anybody saying anything. So let me have a reality check out there, folks. I've just listed some of the things that were on the top of my head. I'd like to see what you do. And my question to Jono was, are you asking how many tools or which one? So we use a software called Robly. Used to use Constant Contact. We've also used MailChimp. We use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Montessori Compass, and we do blogs. What do you do? Now, maybe that I'm just not looking at the right screen, Jono, but I'm not seeing anyone else joining into the group chat. So, guys, if you're out there, jump in, will you?
And that's okay if you don't, if you're having technical challenges. Sometimes all these systems can bump into each other, and we'll just move on in the presentation. But like I said, anytime you feel like throwing out either a question or a comment, or letting us know how many tools you use or what tools you use, we're certainly interested to hear them. So I'll just continue on the conversation now. All right, so the next problem that we see is that generally we're seeing per tool, it takes about 2 hours per month to manage each tool, and the reason why that exists is because each tool really is a database, right? And they have lists of contacts that have to be managed, right? So whether it's Constant Contact, MailChimp, Facebook, Google Apps, Gmail, SurveyMonkey, all the different things that we see schools using, they all have their own database of contacts that have to be maintained. And the other thing we see is when we take all those different tools and we look at how much time each one takes, for staff and teachers to actually manage these tools and use them, we in interviewing schools, what we're seeing is on average 40 hours per staff member per month just managing the communication tools. Okay, and that's actually an astonishing number, but it sounds really high, but that's actually what's going on according to our research. And what we're seeing is $2,000 being spent each month on just paper, ink, and postage. I mean, that itself is a big expense, right? So take that 40 hours and that per month per staff member, and multiply it by the average, hourly wage of a staff member in a school, and you're looking at a $35,000 expense line item per month, and that's per 100 students. Okay, so if you've got 300 students, you're going to triple that. Okay, so that's an astonishing amount, and that's why we are focusing on this topic, because that's actually the most expensive line item on a monthly budget for a school. So now let's take a look at some other statistics, right? So the market size in the US for private schools is not growing very much at all, right? And enrollment rates are actually declining. So what does this mean? Well, if I'll give my take on the industry as someone who's been, consulting and developing systems for the schools. Like, I honestly think that these numbers don't look very good. And let's be honest, they're just not, things are going the wrong way, really. But if we look at the reason why they aren't so great, that actually should give us a lot of hope, because the bottom line is, and I don't want to come off as rude or cynical, but as soon as schools start to run their businesses like the rest of the business world, the impact will be enormous. It just happens to be that schools are generally run really, really inefficiently around communication. And because schools are so communication dependent, that is a huge problem. And, I not that I mean to brag or anything, but, what I'm going to I just want to say, like, what I'm going to show you here is what allows me to build communication software, right? So I've built communication software for schools that is being used currently by over 15,000 people. So you don't have to take my word for it, right? There's a lot of people that are using these tools to improve efficiency at the school. And I'm going to give you a few case studies while we go through this. And so one of them is this is Pat. And I just want to tell you about her. Basically, she was a communications director at her daughter's Montessori school, and she was managing 10 communication tools just for her, from the office, right? And each of those tools was 2 hours per month to keep up to date and relevant and working properly, right? When she started using Hubly, she was able to save 20 hours a month just on communication tool reduction, right? So when I say Hubly, and I want to say that this isn't a commercial for Hubly, but obviously I'm the founder of Hubly, and that's a system that I've taken all my learning and built it into a system, a software that takes the strategies that I've learned and puts them all into one place. So when I say Hubly, it just means she's using the strategies that I've developed to help schools communicate more efficiently. And here's a teacher. His name is Corey Pierce. He's a high school teacher in Hamilton, Ontario. So he loves to do field trips, but when he does field trips, it's literally 3 hours of paper management per field trip. He has to go to the office, they have to make a form, he has to print it off in the photocopier, he has to hand it out to the kids, and he has to get it back from the kids, and that's for every field trip. So, and then on top of that, there's about 10 parent phone calls per trip that he has to do. So just a lot of time communicating back and forth, managing communication by paper and by telephone. And so when he started using these strategies, that was completely removed, and he was able to manage 14 field trips in under 1 hour. And so one thing I want to talk about, like when we get on to the real tactics, the real strategies here, I'm going to talk about email is really, really, really important. And using email for group conversations is one of the examples of things that I see schools doing every day, and it's a big mistake. So, this one lady I spoke to recently said she had to reschedule a meeting, and it took 45 minutes for her to simply look through this spaghetti-like email thread and to figure out who could or couldn't make the multiple different proposed times by each person, right? So she's the one responsible, for this committee, and they've got to move a meeting from one date to another, and it took her 45 minutes just to get clarity on what options were between her and the small group of people. Every person you add, reply all email threads is it's a nightmare. And so I want to let this picture here sink in, because obviously this kitten's really cute, and reply all email threads, managing group communication with reply all email is, you should be motivated enough not to do it for yourself. But if you need extra motivation, I just want you to take a look at this poor little guy being chased by these very scary looking chocolate bars behind him, because the next time you hit reply all, I want you to think about this poor little cute kitten dying. Okay, so social threads are way, way more efficient, so for group communication. So everybody here knows that, school administrators and directors are responsible for making sure everybody, from parents to staff, know what's going on. So precisely, when the immunization records need to be submitted, you have the school's filing system memorized, like your social security number, and the dates and times of all the upcoming events for the next 4 months probably. Unfortunately, you usually wind up repeating that same information multiple times for different people who aren't quite as in the know, right? Between phone calls and emails and comments on social media, you probably spend half of your day just answering questions and disseminating the same information over and over again. And I'm sorry, but I think that is a huge waste of time. So, why would half your day be, just running around essentially like a carrier pigeon, right? There are much better ways for group communication and decision making. So I'm gonna show you some features on Hubly. I'm using Hubly as an example because that's obviously the system that I present everything through. But these can all be replicated on various tools. You don't need to be a Hubly customer to use these strategies, but I'm just going to show you by way of Hubly, because I'm the founder of Hubly. So Hubly just patches them all together and makes them all, set up for you out of the box. So social group threads are much better for group conversations, because once something is posted, if anybody has a question, everyone can see the answer to the teacher, that so the teacher doesn't have to like answer it repetitively, or the staff member in the office doesn't have to answer the same thing over and over again, because it's easily read by everybody and it's there, right? So that clarity, that organization approach to conversation, and keeping it there for people to view, makes your job as the one responsible for sharing information and answers to questions so much easier, so much more efficient. So, in summary, social groups are an ideal way to reduce tons of time and effort around managing communication, because they have the following features. So you've got real-time updates, right? Group specific events, right? Every social group should have an event calendar with it, just like Hubly does, right? You can answer questions just once. You can share media inside of them. You can have private group document sharing and editing as well. A lot of tools that really centralize and simplify and really organize automatically the information for groups of people that they need to know specifically. So you want to make sure that the system that you choose has an option to send out notifications, and pretty much all of them do. But I mean, they don't all work the same way. But in general, when you post something inside of a group, there's usually a notification system that pushes it out. So now parents will generally be able to turn off those notifications. Happens to be the benefit of a system like Hubly, being built for schools, is that it's built with the needs of a school in mind, so that we know that you need the authority of a school director to actually override settings or whatnot. So you can always make sure that even if a parent turns off a notification, you can override that for an emergency or an urgent communication. But if you see here, something gets posted inside of this group. I'm just going back a slide for a second. So Pat Kenefick here is the teacher. She posted this message about the pizza day that's going out tomorrow, and it got sent out as a notification, both as an email to the parents, to the members of that group, and also as a text message, right? And if you look here, it actually shows you see this red box under email stats. It actually tells you who delivered it, who it was delivered to, who opened it, who clicked on it, and who replied. It also tells you who didn't get it. And that really helps you understand who you need to follow up with, rather than following up with everybody with constant reminders of the same information, which essentially gets them to ignore you, because it's really annoying to be continually reminded and sent the same information over and over again. So you want a system that clarifies who did or who didn't get the information, so that your time can be saved and you can actually not push away the parents that are actually informed. And another really important feature that you want to look for in any system, and I really can't stress this enough, is that whatever system or tool you use, make sure that the parents don't have to log in to respond to the information that's being sent to them through the system, right? So if you want to increase parent engagement, you absolutely must remove as many barriers as possible. This is so key, right? And that's why Hubly actually allows notification recipients to simply reply to the email from whatever email tool they use, right? So this is a diagram to show you kind of where Hubly, or a system like Hubly, should sit in your communication process, right? So if you take a look at this for a second, you've got two users on either side of this system, right? And they could be using any email tool that you want. And I'm just gonna get my pointer here. So here's one, here's one user and here's another user, right? And Hubly is sitting here in the middle. And again, there's other tools that do this, right? And you want to make sure that whatever system you use, it allows these guys, like let's say that's a teacher and that's a parent, they're communicating by email back and forth, but they don't have to actually, log into Hubly or whatever system to communicate. But at the same time, because they're both users of that system, Hubly is actually archiving all of that communication, even though they didn't log in. And then it's, we're just trying to show you here that, like, parents don't have to log in, but the system is tracking and archiving the conversations for later, in case you need to have records. Which, some usually you don't, but sometimes you do, and it can be really, really helpful when you need them. So like, how do you currently track communication between your staff and parents? And that's something I just want to ask you. Does anybody here have any ways of tracking communication? And would it be helpful to know, if and when a parent received, read, or replied a message? Like, if you're tracking that, is there a reason why you're tracking it? And if you need to know that, would it be helpful if you could just jump into your system and see the conversations between your staff and your parents, even if they had them without even logging into the system? So, a couple questions. Feel free to throw some answers in the chat box. Groups should have their own calendar as well. So you want to be able to have, calendars for every group, right? And you want those calendars to synchronize as well. So, there's a lot of good calendar systems out there. Again, Hubly is just one of them. But you want to make sure that whatever calendar system you're using, it allows you to create group-specific calendars that all synchronize and allow central management as well, so that you don't have to be managing multiple calendar tools, which can be incredibly time-consuming when you're, like, trying to schedule events amongst different classes and groups or age levels. You want things to, as an admin from the office, you want to be able to manage them centrally, while also letting your staff or your teachers create and manage events for their particular class. And one thing I'll mention about Hubly is that we have those group-specific calendars. They also synchronize with the main calendar at the school. If you look onto the right side here, and they filter out events, and that's a really key thing. You want to have filter features, and that's something you can find in other apps too, that stop that make it so that parents don't see the information that they don't need to see, so that they don't have to kind of scour through other events. And that's one of the key things, one of the key elements of a good communication system for school parents, is that they don't have to see information that is not relevant to them. And they don't have to look through. I mean, what happens currently today is that parents generally have to sleuth through 80% of the information that isn't actually relevant to them specifically, just to find 20% that is. And you want to reduce that. You want to remove that 80% completely, so that parents only see and only receive 100% relevant information. And newsletters now can really, really be retooled and be used the way they really should be used. And I've got a lot to say about newsletters. I can't go into this. I can't really say everything in this webinar. We just don't have enough time. But when you have those other tools I just showed you, using those social groups the right way, and those are like sort of living newsletters, if you will, sending out bite-sized bits of real-time information. That's what the groups are for. But newsletters, the question is, when that's happening in a group, and those day-to-day, moment-to-moment events and updates and announcements are being handled properly the way they should be by groups, then the question is, what should go into your newsletter? So there is a time and place for newsletters, but if you're got those groups going on, then the majority of that day-to-day stuff doesn't need to be put in those newsletters. And newsletters, right, are really best used for less frequent communications that can talk about your school on a higher level, right? So if they're not bogged down with all the day-to-day details, right, it'll allow you to write much more engaging and targeted newsletters that will be valued by your parents or prospective parents. And that's a really important thing right there, prospective parents too. They should be focused on parent education, giving them tools and understandings that they can use at home with their kids, right? So your newsletter now becomes a value add rather than something that gets dodged by people because it's kind of painful and annoying. So this is an example of the Hubly newsletter designer. It has all the same functions and features that you can find in other email newsletters like MailChimp or Constant Contact or MadMimi or Robly. just to name a few. There's many out there, but of course, with Hubly, it's not separate. It's not a separate tool, so you don't have to manage those separate lists. And even if you're using those other tools that I just mentioned, there are ways of connecting them so that they synchronize with other databases. You want to make sure you're doing that. It's a little bit harder, but you want to make sure that's happening, because you don't want to have to manually update every different communication tool that you use, because that is just overly time consuming. So, the right system should really allow you and your staff and your parents to really, actually enjoy opening up your email inbox if your system is acting properly and if the emails are being used properly. So there's some things you don't want to do with email. So email, if you ever need something to be responded to immediately, do not rely on email. Okay, bad idea. Email inboxes are generally bogged down with a whole bunch of spam and promotions and all that stuff. Don't expect people to get back to your emails immediately, and don't use them. And this might sound obvious. Don't use them as emergency communications. I know you probably already know that, but it just needs to be said for good measure. Okay. And what you really want to, like I said before, don't send everything to everyone all the time. That is the number one mistake I see schools doing, and it really kills me. And it's something that I harp on schools about all the time. So just think of the golden rule here. Okay. Put yourself in your parents' shoes for a moment. Like to use another analogy, like, if you were, let's say your bank was to send you a 5-page newsletter filled with information about other people's accounts, right? That would probably be really annoying. And, let's say only one paragraph was about your account. You really wouldn't enjoy or appreciate that communication from them, right? So one of the first things that we learn from speaking to parents is that they are continuously smacked over the head with irrelevant information. So if you want to train someone to ignore your emails, just do that. Okay, just send them everything and they will ignore you. Okay, so they'll learn how to dodge your communications pretty quickly, and Gmail and other email tools make it really easy to do that. Okay, so in summary, what is email good for? Well, think about that scenario I mentioned, with bank information. So like I have my bank and they send me statements, and I do prefer email for statements rather than snail mail. So, but one good thing about Google is that it's a spectacular, search engine. So if I've got information coming in that I want to be able to easily find later, then that's what email is good for, right? The type of stuff that you send a great newsletter that's a value-added content, that's useful information that they can use today. They're going to read it, they're going to enjoy it, and it's going to be archived, but they'll always be able to go back and find it again. And if they thought, if it really did impact them, they're going to go looking for it. So that's what email is good for. So the other thing, the other major component to reducing your workload is paper. You want to get away from paper as much as possible. So the average school is spending approximately, like I said, about $2,000 on paper every month. And that includes, buying paper, photocopy, ink. The ink is where they get you, right? Like how annoying is it to have to go and fill up ink? It's so expensive and it's a total racket, right? So, then you've got repairs to the photocopier, or maybe you've got some crappy printer sitting there, and then you got postage or whatnot, so like, just get away from paper, get away from printers as much as possible. And you can really do it. You could reduce your paper management, your office paper, by 90% really easily, actually, by using these strategies. Okay. So, and this is an example of what you can do with a system like Hubly. This is the Hubly digital form. This is just one way of using it. So, in Hubly, like in the group, we could have group forms, or just digital forms in general. And on the right side here, you see this is a digital form. This is a simple field trip form, but we also, you can do parent packets, any type of form, any type of progress report or documentations. Digital forms they're just whatever you can do on paper, you can do on a good digital form system. And Hubly definitely lets you do all of the various things I mentioned. letting people fill out the information, do a signature with their finger or their mouse on a computer, taking payments, and that's just a simple one. And then one of the key things here, if you look in the middle, you see that the entries are organized digitally and automatically. So when people fill out a form, you don't have to then collect paper and then take the information and type it into a database. It just gets put into the database automatically without any work or time. And that's the type of system you want. That's how you can save incredible amounts of money. And the biggest value point here is that you might see that little search box there. Maybe I should make that bigger so it's clearer. But when data is collected with a digital form and put into a digital database, like a digital file system, then all the information is searchable. So you can look up students with just a search field or look up anything else, in seconds. So let's say you want to look up, you've got your enrollment form or your medical information form, and all that stuff is going into your database, and it's all going in digitally. So it didn't take you any time. It just, parents fill it out. It's already in there. And you want to do a quick search for like a query for all the kids with peanut allergies. You can go into your database like Hubly and do a search, and everything just pops up for you in like a second or maybe even a half a second. And, if you were to ask, I would ask you, if you were doing it by paper, how long would that take, let alone getting all the information into a paper filing system or from paper, typing it manually into another database, but if you're using paper, there's just a lot of time. So if you can remove paper, that is one of the biggest time savers that you can do for yourselves and your staff. Another great way of using digital forms is polls. Polls are much easier for making decisions, or at least getting consensus within a group. So this is great for scheduling meetings or, deciding on what gift, you're going to give to your favorite parents maybe, or, anything really. It's just a poll. So the point is that if you're going to do this over a group email thread, like that reply all scenario I was talking about, that's going to take you, it's going to be a daunting task. And it can take you literally hours just to figure out what the heck you want to do or what everybody wants, right? But making a poll like this allows people to vote, and real quickly, everybody can see the results. There's a lot of tools. This is obviously what Hubly has this feature. That's what I'm showing you here. This is Hubly's poll feature, but there are a number of tools that do this. SurveyMonkey, Google Forms does it, Doodle. If you want to again patch together all these different tools, you can find them. Just showing you this is what Hubly does. Is because it is we see schools using these other tools. And we saw that was another thing we should add into the system. And so now I want to tell you another testimony or this is a case study, I should say. This is Amy Geller. She's a parent volunteer at her daughter's school, and talking about forms here, she would actually, the school would have her volunteer. It would take her 2 weeks, and what she would do is she would manage the parent packet, getting it compiled, getting it all set up, sending it out to the parents. This was physical paper, piles of paper to every family. Like there would be like 10 forms, and it was like 30 pieces of paper, and they would mail it out, and they would get it back, and then she would have to sift through every single one of those sheets of paper and type in the information into FileMaker Pro. And I mean, that would take weeks of like full-time volunteer, time, right? And now they use Hubly, and they don't have to do that anymore, right? And she also doesn't have to like chase parents around for like volunteer management because she's got all these communication tools. So the result is all of that time and effort went away because it all is taken care of digitally. And now the school doesn't even need her to volunteer anymore. She actually does. They don't need her to do the parent packet. So they allow her, and this is a very smart and capable woman. She's actually has a full-time job. She's actually a user experience designer. And I've talked to her, many times. She was one of our earliest customers, and she really liked Hubly because she's a user experience expert. She really appreciated Hubly, and she, but the most important thing is she saw that it would allow her to do, to basically replace literally weeks of full-time effort and work with one simple, parent packet, digital parent packet created and managed through Hubly. And she could have done it in other tools, but obviously they did it with Hubly. And now the school can utilize her wisdom and her experience and her energy towards higher value things that really are much higher impact for the school and for the the parent community. Just skip over this. Now, this is an example of, oops, jumped over it, too trigger happy here. This is an example of another way of using digital forms. And I keep on showing these different examples because there's the opportunities, the ways to use this are really endless. But when you're dealing with a digital form provider like Hubly, we will organize your entries for you, so you don't even have to type them manually into any type of spreadsheet or database, and spend that, do that for weeks, just like Amy would. Then when you have to find something, it's just doing a search, right? So let's say what we do, so we have this feature called, student pages. So our forms allow the teachers or the parents to select their child from, so who this form is being entered for. It can send an automated, if you want it to, it can send an automatic notification to the parents. So again, you can do the report, or you can do the attendance, or you can, fill out the documentation. And if you wanted to, it can just send a message to the parents. Again, many systems can do this type of stuff. And then what we also do is it automatically shows up on a page dedicated to each student respectively. So there's a central database of all these entries, but we also automatically organize all the entries for students into kind of like a, any system you set up, you want to have that type of automated or data organization, so that finding information is quick and easy for not just for the parents, but maybe most importantly for the staff that are the ones that are actually looking up the information all the time. So what if all parents had to do, or staff had to do, was fill out a form, and then the system sent the information right to the person automatically and placed the information on a page about the student for easy lookup, and for printing or like even editing, any good digital form service will let you edit those forms as well, or at least the right people having those permissions. What could that do for you, right? How much time would that save you? So that, again, a digital system should automate all the various steps that go in between, not just actually entering the form digitally, but all the steps in between from getting the information to point A to point B should also be automated. And scheduling is another big, another opportunity for saving yourself tons of time, right? So how do you like as an example, like how do your parents currently book parent-teacher conferences or school tours, right? So like what we usually hear is that, they're on, they put sheets on the door of every room, and parents have to run back and forth, from door to door to see, what slots are available. And so what we've done at Hubly is a lot more automated. So digital scheduling systems, so people can actually, see all schedules from one central place. And then, it sends automated confirmations and reminders, and it can even handle the cancellations as well. It synchronizes with your calendars. And again, there's another tool out there. There's actually, again, every single thing I'm showing you here in Hubly, there's other options out there. I do want to stress, and I keep on saying this, you don't have to use Hubly to do this, of course. But this is just what it looks like inside Hubly. So, up until now, we've been talking about internal communications, but what about external communications, right? How do you effectively communicate with potential parents, right? So most schools today want to increase their enrollment numbers, but not every school can afford a dedicated employee to sell, their school's good qualities and parents. So, when you set up your website properly, it can really do that work for you and knock out a lot of the tasks of communicating that information. So, another way to think about your school's website is kind of like a billboard, right? I often give this analogy that when people are, when helping people understand that, like, what a website is meant to be. So, like, when I'm talking about like Hubly and our web hosting features and our search engine optimization service, I usually use that analogy, right? So like you've got, your website really is a billboard, and even if you have one billboard, having another billboard on another busy street only gets you more traffic, only gets you more exposure. So everyone knows that they need a website, and I don't think I've come across a single school that doesn't have something up online, right? But what I find is that most school directors don't really understand what their website is actually meant to do for them. And again, I don't mean to sound condescending. Just the reality is that this whole area of digital and online marketing and communications is a real specialty, and it's not something that they teach in education programs. Maybe they give it a little bit of a nod, but it's just not, obviously you're not going to be an expert, right? So one of the most important things to do on your website is to write on it consistently and often. And what this is basically about a blog, like you've got your static pages that talk about your school, what you do, but then to really continue to engage new prospective parents, you want to be blogging on a regular basis. And the most important thing with blogging is to be consistent. You want to be able to do it. You want to be doing it even if it's once a month and only once a month. You want to do it on the same day every month. Now, ideally, you want to send out a post around the same time on every day, if you can make it even the same time, right? So by creating a consistent schedule, parents will come to expect an update, and they'll be eager to see what's in store, that week or that month. Plus, posting regularly will establish your school as a trustworthy authority, right? And, a reassuring distinction for both new and existing. So I want you to think about that, right? Like, how bad would it look really if a parent was to go to your blog and see articles in a sporadic timeline? That would kind of give an impression of your school, although you might think it's just a blog, but actually that's your face. That is your billboard, right? So if you had your school on a billboard on a street and that billboard was a bad design, or it was like torn apart, or like something was misspelled, that would be a really bad thing. Same thing with a blog. You want to show that this school can manage things in a timely manner, and that you've got a strategy in place. You want to give the parents that sense of professional business management and trust. Now, here's an action tip. So if you're not sure how to manage a blog and how to just make it not too much of a daunting task, right? So like using your teachers and your administrative team, carve out a posting schedule that's not too daunting, right? So the best way to do this is to assign a different teacher or administrative team, member each week to post something. And really the most important, now what to post, right, is the big question. And you want to make sure you're finding relevant topics, right? Parent-focused content. So, another great idea for a blog is to regularly share, value-added content that you should think of as basically as a gift to your parents. Think it to not just your current parents, but your prospective parents. Think about giving them something for free that they would actually pay for it. It should be good enough that they would actually pay for it. That's really the goal. So you write some good ideas, like how to get your kids to eat healthy, or top 3 strategies for handling sibling fights. A couple ideas, things that they can actually take away, like something that is driving them crazy today. You want to establish yourself as just, you're giving helpful, valuable content, and you're building a relationship. Even if they don't put their kid in your school that year, if they are enjoying your blog and sharing it, on, virally on Facebook or whatnot, they're likely to consider coming to you if you're engaging them and their existing school isn't. I think that's a great opportunity for schools to think about, right? Keep on engaging. Don't ever think that somebody, is a lost opportunity, that they're, because they didn't go with you this year, they're not going to go with you the next year. So generally speaking, the more you can help your parents by providing tips and education or helpful advice, the more likely they are, to be, for your information to resonate with them and to build that rapport. So have your team brainstorm a few possible topics, and I want you to write this down, okay? Because this is a really good strategy. Be sure to keep one master list of ideas, right? This is the way you want to build a content strategy. One master list, so everyone is on the same page. And you want to use the wisdom that you have in your school, because everybody is smart and capable, and you want to be taking the value that you have within your school and sharing it, because that is who your school is. More than anything, it's your teachers, right? That's what your school is. That's the product that you're offering. right? That's the service. So you want to show that service. There's a way. This is a great way to let the whole world know how great your teachers are. Have them posting and putting a face on it and showing prospective families and existing families why their kids are in your school. Now, I also want to talk about using dedicated landing pages. There's a lot we could go on in this, but essentially, you want to be doing campaigns. We can certainly help you get deeper into this, but I'm just going to mention this quickly. You want to be sending up dedicated landing pages. They're basically like a digital flyer. This is different than your website. This is different than it will be on your website, or it can be on your website. But I can't stress this enough. Like, don't just go and buy some ads or pay some search engine optimization expert to send traffic that you're paying for to your homepage. That is a huge mistake, a huge waste of money. That is not how you do online marketing. Here at Hubly, we will walk you through this. We'll show you how to do this. We'll give you a tool to make this work. Do not, there's many landing page marketing tools out there. You should be using them. Absolutely, you should be. Do not, and I can't say this enough, do not just send everybody to the same web pages. You are not getting the value for your dollar if you're doing that. Okay. And as I just said, don't just send them to your homepage. So you want to think of this like kind of like a flow, right? So the traffic here would be people coming from a Facebook ad, going to a lead capture page. That's your landing page. And then from there, using a system like Hubly or other systems, when they fill out that inquiry form, they should be getting automated, communications and ongoing newsletters. This is how prospective families get into your newsletter. And then after they do that, they should take them to a thank you page. And that thank you page should actually have a way, if you're on Hubly, you can use our scheduling feature to actually schedule a tour, give them the ability to book an available slot that you've set up in advance. And then, you're getting people right into your enrollment flow automatically, and things are happening without you doing all this stuff manually. All of these steps can be automated, so you don't have to, do it. And then with these landing pages, you really want to try to display the important details prominently above the fold. There's a couple just tips about how to use these web pages. There's so much to talk about here, but this is just a really important thing. When someone lands on a website, they're greeted with a display of information, and that whatever they first see, that's what's considered above the fold. And this is the area that's visible before the website visitor has to scroll. So you want your most important information to be there. And this is just another great example. A couple things that you want to show there. You want to have buttons that are really clear. These are called call to actions, and you want to have that form. This is just a great example that I found of a really good landing page that has a very clear goal. This is the type of thing that, if you have an ad, this is what they should land on. They shouldn't just land on your homepage. This should be a very specific page set up to have them get into your enrollment process. And, I use this page here just to show that, what it means to give people a very clear path, right? If you go to google.com, they've made it stupid easy to understand what is supposed to happen here, right? That is what you're striving for on your own website. So just keep that in mind. And really, this next process here is kind of like sort of the holy grail of school workload reduction. You want to keep, all the different things I've told you about can all be linked together and to create all these automated workflows from one step to the next, so that the system handles 90% of the work, and you have to set it up, and then it does most of the work for you, and then obviously notifies you when you need to go in and check and see the status. Let's just say this example here is like a prospective parent getting into your enrollment system, right? So if you look at the top left, somebody would come to your website, they'd fill out a form, they get automated, autoresponders, automated messages going out, notifying the staff person, the admissions staff of the entry. They can then go and check the status of that entry, and they can make a status update those updates can send out automated messages that lead, that give that prospective family a link to go to the automated scheduling. Let's say the school tour scheduler, so that they can go book a time on their own, and then by doing so, more messages go out, and confirmations and reminders to that parent, so that they show up and you don't get cancellations. And then the admin staff can go and, okay, they can be notified, and then they could go and, like, they have that meeting with the parent, they do the tour, and then they go and they, like, depending on what status you might put that application, you might move it from waiting list to, like, approved, and upon doing that, a different email could go out that's pre-designed, that congratulates them on being accepted, and sends them a link to the enrollment form, which then, so all of these steps currently are being generally managed manually with paper by people. And that is insane today, because there are endless tools that can automate every single step of the way, so that you can get all of that enrollment work done with, like, literally 10% of the effort and time. Hubly is a system that kind of has it all out of the box for you, but there are plenty of ways of connecting various different tools that all do the same type of things individually. And that's a little more challenging, but it's definitely possible. And that should be your goal. If you are running a school, we used to set up these systems for people by combining a bunch of different tools, until we made Hubly, so that it's all sort of all in one, out of the box set up specifically for schools. So there are consultants, and there are people that you can meet with to like set these things up. You should really be going for that. So my question to you is, what do you think? So, I'm not exactly sure why you showed up here today, but I bet I can guess. You probably want to be able to send messages to parents and trust that they get read. And you probably don't trust the system and have to keep following up and resending, the same communications over and over again. And you're probably tired of that. And you probably want to free up time from, like, these boring, repetitive remedial tasks, like sorting through sheets of paper or sending out the same email manually over and over and over again, so that you can actually free up your time to focus on higher value tasks that have much greater impact on your school and your children, right? And you probably know that you are capable of a lot more, and I know that you are. And you just need to get some of these roadblocks out of your way, right? So, because you want to give your parents a communication experience that they actually yearn for and appreciate, and don't feel that they need to dodge and ignore. So it's time for you to remove all the hassles of inefficient communications and free your staff with a comprehensive system. A system that removes all the guesswork out of all the implementation and allows your staff to focus on their highest value tasks, right? Get away from tool management and get to the teaching, the face-to-face, really, really valuable education. You can do this. You've shown up here today. You've made it a priority. You've taken notes. You're excited about the opportunity, right? I want you to know that an efficient system can change your school, but you've got to know exactly what to do in order to create a solid, comprehensive, efficient, and trustable communication system. And that's where we come in. So remember, nothing that I've shared with you today is theory, right? I've implemented every single step of these strategies to help schools grow, but it didn't happen overnight, right? Like, this took years, and it took a bunch of trial and error. Okay, so this is important stuff, and I'm not extra special, and I don't have some Einsteinian IQ, right? I just have a system that works, and if I can do this, then believe me, you can too. So, do you want to know how to simplify and reduce parent communication workload by 80%? And very importantly, without causing a revolt at your school? So you've got two options. Option one is that you can find these tools, right? And all the things I've shown you as individual tools, right? But I'm sure you've guessed that I've got something to share with you that will make all of this much simpler. You know, I'm sure you've got nothing but, you know, lots and lots of time on your hands, right? Like you probably have hours of margin in your day just to find tools and implement all these strategies, right? Of course not, right? So who has the time for that? Certainly not people running a school, right? So the question is, how do you make all this work and get things up and running quickly? So the answer to that question is the Hubbly Digital Communication Training Program, which is actually being hosted by none other than the Montessori Foundation Leadership Institute. So we'll not only go in depth in all of the areas I spoke about today, but we've created this curriculum with an accredited and unbiased, you know, nonprofit organization that's just dedicated to helping schools. The Hubbly Digital Communication Workshop Program is the absolute fastest way to gain the knowledge of how to attain huge workload reductions in your communication system so you can free up your time to focus on higher value tasks. And so here's the outline that we'll be covering today. Module number 1, we're going to talk about how to write newsletters that get read, how to keep everyone in your school up to date, you know, using group posts, and the do's and don'ts of email. And module number 2, now trust me, if you want to reduce paper usage in your office, you know, reduce the expense of buying the paper, the ink, postage, photocopy repairs, and all that stuff, all the hours it takes to manage information by paper, this is crucial, right? The benefits are enormous. I promise you will thank me after learning this information. So module number 2 is about how to reduce 90% of paper usage in the office, how to use digital forms to save office staff and teachers hours every day. Module number 3, this is where your website, we talk about your website and how to make your website work effectively as a communication tool, not just to your existing parents, but your prospective parents, just like I spoke about in the webinar. We'll walk through making landing pages step by step. We'll write parent-focused web page content and format it correctly. You know, and for the search engine optimization, you know, we'll discuss all that stuff in the workshop. And module number 4 is you know, the topics are what the parents actually want to read, right? How to use videos and, you know, and images in your communication. This is about the content, right? This is where we're going to talk about, like, you know, how to actually develop content strategy, how to not just send the information efficiently, but how to make it so that they engage it. And module number 5, this is the holy grail of parent communication systems. This is where it all comes together. This is definitely the most advanced category of the workshop that we'll be offering. You know, we build automation between the digital forms and the emails, you know, so we take your standard everyday workflows and make them work for you like robots, right? So after this workshop, you'll find systems up and watch them work for you in your sleep. So what will you create? A comprehensive digital communication system that reduces massive workload, a newsletter strategy that will get read by parents, a communication structure that you will trust and will allow you way more time to focus on what you really want to work on, and higher enrollment due to current and prospective parents being engaged properly the way they should be using digital communication tools. So what you get with this program is you get 5 live workshops once a month where you can learn and interact with us. You get 5 downloadable checklists and blueprints to help you implement the lessons at your school. You'll get a members only social group where you can all, you know, our team can help you and you can all help each other. And you'll actually get a free Hubbly site that's actually valued at either $24.99 or $49.99 because that's going to be the system that we give to you that we actually run the workshops through. We're going to give you a free Hubbly site so that you can actually follow along step by step and do the coursework. And if you decide to keep that Hubbly site, it won't cost you anything. And if you decide to use Hubbly ongoing, you don't need to. You can take that information and run with it and use it with any system you want. It applies to anything. But if you want to continue with Hubbly, we'll give you 1 free month also on an annual subscription. So, and here's that bonus I was talking about at the beginning of the webinar. If you sign up before the end of the webinar, you'll get a free downloadable ebook called Master Parent Communication, right? This requires signing up for the digital communication workshop before the end of the session today. So I'll give you a lot of chance to do that, but this is a really nice little bonus that we're going to give to you. So are you ready to create your simple and efficient communication system? Well, you're probably wondering what the investment is. So you could keep doing what you're doing and have schools spending over $35,000 a month per 100 students just managing the tools that you're doing. Or another option is going with a consultant that costs thousands of dollars and will kind of create sort of a patchwork of tools. And the total value of this workshop is $3,494. That's not what the cost is, but that's the value, right? So if you were actually hiring Hubly, so let's break that down for a second, okay? If you were actually hiring Hubly as a consulting, for our consulting or a training, we'd charge you $199 per hour, right? So that would be, so 5 workshops would be $995. And a Hubly site, like I said, we have 2 different versions of our site. One's $24.99 and one's $49.99. So even if you went with the lower site, that free Hubly site would be $24.99. So I just want to be clear, you do not need Hubly after the workshop to use any of this information. But if you want, you would have to pay $24.99, right? So you can just take that, take what you set up and continue on with it without having to pay that. So, however, since we're doing this in collaboration with the Montessori Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization, we are pricing this to be extremely accessible to you. So your investment today, what we've done is broken it into 6 payments. So today, your first installment is only $97, and then 5 installments of $97 to follow. So you get started today. Everything is available to you for just $97 and then 5 installments to follow. So we've made it as easy as possible for you to get really big results. Or you can pay it in full, and you get a discount if you pay it in full. So you can do a one-time payment for just $497. Or again, you can do 6 payments of $97. So if you're ready to join now, I want you to go to hubly.com. And I have to fix this. This is actually wrong. I'm glad I caught this right now. This is incorrect. So this is hubly.com, and that should be digital-communication. So I'm gonna see if I can fix that on the fly here. Digital-communication. There we go. That's the actual link. That's the correct link. That's where you need to go today. So now, when you go to hubly.com/digital-communication, you'll get all the information you'll need about the program. And I want you to know that we are here to provide real education, useful workshops that will have huge impact on your school. And we are so sure that you'll find it valuable that if you don't, you actually can get every dollar back. So this is where I answer some questions about the product and the digital communication system and the course, and I can answer some of those questions about the webinar we just did, and the timer is just going to go. So you've got 15 minutes to shoot any questions over, both Tim Selden and I can answer any questions that you have. And if you want, you can even request to speak. Feel free to click the button there to request to speak, and you can even ask us live, or just use the chat. But come on, don't be shy. If you have any questions about it, we're here for you.